Hello there. Hope you're doing fine. Good to see you on this channel again. So, this session is going to be on PHP mail. So, we're going to see how we can send an email using a PHP script. Application sending mails is not a new concept for us. We have been part of it and we have been using it. Say, for instance, if you log on to a banking system, you may get an email to your account alerting you that you have logged on to a system. That's just a security alert. Likewise, when we are creating accounts on systems, we'll get emails to that specific email ID we are giving in the registration form just to identify ourselves. So, application sending emails is part of any application, and we have this as part of the security procedures. In today's class, we're going to see how we can send emails using a PHP script. Let me show you a visualization of what the entire setup is going to be, what all softwares you need, and what is the platform you're going to use to run our PHP script that will send an email to a specific account. So I'm going to use VS Code for running my PHP code, and I've already installed XAMPP. So the first thing is we've already installed XAMPP, and as part of XAMPP we have Apache and MySQL running on my laptop. So we are going to use VS Code to code all our files. So we'll have VS Code, and we'll create a folder and we'll open that folder on VS Code. So this is where our PHP script is going to run. We're going to code it using VS Code. For execution, we have our servers installed as part of the XAMPP installation. Now to send an email, we need an SMTP server. So we're going to use an SMTP server. For this, we are going to use Gmail's SMTP server. So I'll just give you the steps required for running this PHP script. The very first thing is we are going to use this package called PHPMailer, which will help us with the classes and the methods that can help us send an email to a specific account. So this package we should install inside the folder where our PHP project is. So for installation of PHPMailer package, we need this tool called Composer. So what is Composer? We will use this dependency management software. It's a tool for installing and updating packages required for a PHP project. So we will use this tool. We'll first install this tool. That is the first step. We'll install Composer on our laptop. The second step is we will use Composer and we will install PHPMailer. So this package we will install using Composer. So on our laptops, what is required? XAMPP is required, VS Code is required, and after you create a folder, in that folder, what we're going to do is we're going to install this package PHPMailer. For installing this package, we need this tool called Composer. We will install Composer in our systems, and then we'll go to that folder and then we will install PHPMailer. What is the use of this PHPMailer? It contains the classes and methods which will help us to send an email to a specific account from the PHP script. So these are the steps that are required to be performed first. The next thing is we need an SMTP server. For this, we are going to use Gmail's SMTP server. And here we will create an account. So we will create a Gmail account. So you log into Gmail, you create a Gmail account. And after creating the Gmail account, you need to turn on two-factor authentication. You should turn on two-factor authentication for this account. After turning on two-factor authentication for your Gmail account, you should be setting the app password. So app password should be set for this account. So these are the things you're going to perform on Gmail SMTP server. So just create an account, turn two-factor authentication for that account, and then once when you've turned it on, you can also set an app password. So why we need this is using the app password and the Gmail account. So the Gmail account we are creating here and the app password will be used by your PHP script to log into the Gmail server and then send emails to any other account on any other server. So this email account and app password are the credentials required by our PHP script to log into our Gmail SMTP server. And after it logs in using the app password, it will use a from address to address, which we give in our code to send that mail to any recipient on this globe. So these are the steps that are required for us to run this code successfully, this PHP script. This PHP script which I'm giving you, if you want to run it successfully, you should follow these steps. Let me just quickly repeat these steps. Have XAMPP installed in your system, then you have VS Code and you create a folder where your project will be running, and you install Composer, and after installing Composer you go to the folder where your project is, then you install PHPMailer. I'll be giving these steps soon. So this is just an overview of what we need, and we also need an SMTP server. So we are using an external SMTP server provided by Gmail, that is Gmail SMTP server. We'll create a Gmail account, we'll turn on two-factor authentication for this account, and then we'll also enable app password. What is the use of this account and app password is, our PHP script will use the account and the app password to log into the Gmail SMTP server, and then from then on we can have our from address to address, subject, and a body of the message, which can be used for sending a mail to any account, any recipient. So these are the steps. Now let's take a look at how to install Composer. I've got some screenshots on the installation process and how to install PHPMailer. Next, we'll see the process of creating a Gmail account, turning two-factor authentication, and setting a password. So now we'll see how to install this tool Composer. For this, you should go to https://getcomposer.org/download, and then you click on composer setup.exe. You save that file to a folder, double click that file. So it's going to ask you whether you want to install it for all users. Yes, install for all users on the system. Click on next, and it will recognize the PHP that is already installed on your system. So click on next. Next. So do you need a proxy server to connect to the internet? I didn't use one, so click on next. So I left to the default folders, click on install. It's downloading Composer and running the Composer. Click on next. That's it, finish. So after you have installed Composer, you can verify whether the installation has been successful by going to your command prompt and typing Composer. So you'll be getting a message like this. So we have finished our very first step, that is installation of this tool Composer, which is a PHP dependency management software, which will help us to manage packages related for PHP project development. So we can install and update packages. So here we are going to install PHPMailer in our system. So we go to this folder, see on XAMPP htdocs. I have created a folder. This is where my PHP mailing script is going to reside. That's where my project is. So I'll traverse to this folder using command prompt, and then I'll type this command composer require phpmailer/phpmailer. So this is like downloading and installing PHPMailer packages. So you can see the download and installation is happening, and you'll get the messages. That's it. So we have finished downloading an installation of Composer, and we have installed the packages, PHPMailer packages required for sending emails. The next thing is we need to create an account on Gmail. So I have created an account on Gmail. So the account I have created is satishnevergivesUp@gmail.com. So I have just created this account, satishnevergivesUp@gmail.com. So this is the account I have created. After creating this account, I have just clicked on security, and then two-step verification is initially off, so we should click on this and just get started. Click on it. You'll be getting a text message to the mobile phone number you have given while you're creating this account. So I opted for a text message here, so click on next, and then I have entered the text message that I received on my phone. Click on next. So now I have enabled two-step verification for the account that I have created on Gmail. The next thing is, see, two-step verification is on. First, you need to complete this. After you get this tick mark, what you do, you again click on this arrow mark here. So when you click on that, and then when you browse, when you scroll down, you will be able to see app passwords. Initially, you will have none of the passwords set for this account. You click here, and here you have a drop down option. So you can select mail, and you have another drop down. I've selected Windows computer. After this, you can click on generate. So you will see your app password here. I have just removed that app password for security reasons. So your app password will be generated. So please note it down. So this is the app password we'll be giving in our PHP script, which will be used for logging into our Gmail server. So these are the steps. I hope you were able to follow this. And now let's start coding. So what is the code we are going to write now? What is the application we are going to code now is, let me go to a white screen. So what is the application we are going to code now is, I'm going to create a simple login form. So it's like user ID, password will be entered by the user. So user ID and password will be entered by the user. When the user clicks on submit, when he logs in, so what is that we are going to do is take the user ID password. On the MySQL database, I have a table. So in this table, I have user ID, I have password, I have email ID for the user, I also have username. So we are going to take this user ID and password in our PHP scripts. So we're going to read this user ID and password. And in our PHP script, we are going to get the user ID and password from the database. We are going to compare them. If the comparison is fine, then it's a valid user. So what we are going to do is, we are going to take the email ID of this user. So first what we'll do is, we will use our Gmail account. So we have created, I've created this account, right? Satish never gives up at gmail.com. So I am going to use that account, that is the from email account, and then I'm going to use the app password. So app password will enable us to log into Gmail server, and after I log in, what is that I'm going to do? So this is the from email account, right? Satish never gives up at gmail.com. That will be the from email, and the to email address is the email address in the database. So I'm going to get this and then make it the to address. And then the body of the message will be a security alert. It's just an alert system. You have logged in and we'll give the date and time. It's just an alert email that's being sent to the user. And we'll also throw a dummy welcome page for the user. So this is the thing we're going to code. We're going to code a security alert system. That is, when the user logs in, you'll get an email as a security alert with the date and timestamp on when the login happened. I'll also show you the demo of this application first, and then we'll start coding. Let me run this application. Let's go to the browser. So here is this. We are entering our email ID and password. As I told you, the entire database. I have created a database in my name, that is Satish, and inside that I have this table user, and you can see there's an user ID, password, email ID of the user who is logging in, and the username. So I'm using this table for validation. So the user enters username, user ID, and then the password I have given is hectic life. Okay, let me submit. So on submit, an email should be sent to this user. So who is the user here? cjsatishv82@gmail.com. So to this ID, an email should be sent from which ID? Satish never gives up at gmail.com. That's the ID I have created on Gmail, and I have created an app password for that. From that address to this address, this is the user's email address, and he's going to get an email on this address. So let's submit this data. This is the home page. So it's like an email has been sent from Satish never gives up at gmail.com to this user who has logged in, cjsatishv82@gmail.com. Let me log into the account and check. Okay, so here is this email. Just now we have sent it. You have logged into your application. So this is the email sent from Satish never gives up at gmail.com to this account, that is cjsatishv82@gmail.com. Let's log into cjsatishv82@gmail.com and check whether the recipient has received this email. Okay, I have logged into the other account, cjsatishv82@gmail.com, and he is the recipient of the alert. He is the actual user, and you see he has received this mail saying you have logged into your application, the date and timestamp, and this alert has been generated from this email ID, satishnevergivesUp@gmail.com. So this is the demonstration all about, and we'll see how to achieve this using PHP. Let's start to code now. We'll be coding the login page. And before even starting off with the code, I just want to tell you that when you install PHPMailer using the composer, you will see this folder vendor getting created, and inside that folder you'll have autoload.php. So where we have installed PHPMailer, we have installed PHPMailer in the folder which we are going to open in VS Code. So you'll be able to see this created autoload.php inside vendor folder. We'll be using this file autoload.php in our code now. So let's start with the code. So this is going to be a demo on sending an email alert upon login using PHP script. So when the user logs in, we are going to just send an email alert, and we'll start with an HTML page. So the title is, we'll call this login page, and we'll have a simple form here. The action is upon submit, we'll have the PHP code in the same form. So we'll call the name of the form. Method, as usual, it's going to be post, since we are sending some data to the server. If you want to have any JavaScript validation, you can have it. Due to time constraint, we are skipping that. And we'll have a label for the user to enter his user ID. We'll say enter your user ID. And we'll have this input type to be text, and name for this field is user ID, and we'll also have an ID, that is user ID. ID is user ID, and break. Next we'll have a label for the password. So label for password, we'll say the user enter your password, and input type to be text. We can have it as password, but just for the demo I am having it as text, and name will be password, and ID also will be password. Then break to go to the next line, and we'll have a submit button. Submit value is equal to submit, and name is equal to submit. That's it. Our form is ready now. So, and we'll also start a session. Starting a session, since we are logging in, we'll have a session underscore start in the beginning of the page. So we have discussed in depth on sessions in a previous lecture. If you are not clear about sessions, please visit that. We'll also be using some database connection code here. If you're not clear with how to connect to a database from PHP, please check my previous lectures on DB connection. So let's start writing our PHP code. Let's put our PHP code here. And the very first thing is I'm going to include this file, include db.php. So what is the use of this file is it has got connection code. That is, it has got two functions. One is for opening a connection and closing a connection. For those who are following my PHP lectures earlier, you will know this file very well. So let me just quickly go through this file. It has got two functions. One for creating an object of MySQLi and giving back that object as the connection object. Another one takes that object and closes the connection. So this file is purely for DB operations. And now we're going to use files from our PHPMailer package. So we require this autoload.php, which comes as part of the installation, which is under the vendor folder, and it's called autoload.php. So when you install PHPMailer using Composer, you will see this folder and files getting added to your VS Code folder. And now we have to use the packages like use PHPMailer. It's mailer slash PHPMailer slash PHPMailer. And we'll also use PHPMailer slash PHPMailer slash SMTP. Next, we need to check whether the user has submitted. So it's calling is set, and then we'll use the super global variable $_post and pass the name submit. If submit is set, what is that we are going to do? So we'll get the user ID and password in our form. We'll call that user ID is equal to the super global variable $_post. The name we have given for user ID is user ID in the form, and we'll also get the password. So this is password, and the name that we are given per password is in the form is password. So we have received the user ID and password. Now we'll open this connection using open connection. So this method is in the db.php file which we have included. So it returns a connection object of type MySQLi. And using this connection, we are going to execute a SQL query on the database. So now we'll use the connection object and the prepare method to execute this SQL query. What is that we are going to select is select user ID, password, email, and username from user table where user ID is equal to question mark. So we are using the prepare method. So we're going to bind the parameters. What prepare method returns is an object of type statement class. So we call that stmt. So this is a usual thing which we have performed in our earlier DB operations. So you should be very familiar with this. And just a reminder, like the table is here. So this is what I am selecting. Select user ID, password, email, username from which table? User table, which is under the database by name Satish. So that's what we are performing here. And next step is we should bind the parameter. So dollar statement. We'll call this method bind underscore param. And the first thing is, what is the type of the parameter? It's a string. And what is the parameter we're going to bind? The user ID from the form. So we'll give $user ID. So we're retrieving all the data pertaining to that specific user ID from the table. Next, we'll execute the query $statement and then execute. We'll get the results from the statement object. So it's a result, $result. Result is equal to $statement. and get underscore result is the method. Now we'll check whether we have got any rows from the table. Is there a matching user ID and is there any row returned from the query? That's what we're going to check. So we're going to check dollar result num underscore rows. If it is greater than 0, we have got a record for this user ID in the table. That's the meaning. So let me open parenthesis. So if we have some result, what we are going to do is we'll fetch that result as a row. Dollar row is equal to. So we'll use this method dollar result fetch underscore associate. We'll fetch the record as an associative array. So that's the meaning here. And we should compare the password and the user ID entered in the form with the user ID and password from the database. So for this, we'll use a string compare function, strcmp. We'll compare the password, that is, the user ID with the user ID entered in the form. If this equals 0, and again string compare for comparing the password. So password from the table is $row. So this is the password from the database, and the password from the form is password. If this equals 0, then it means he's a valid user. We have an issue here, so we should not be closing this parenthesis here. Now it's solved. If we have a valid user, what is that we need to do? Now we should be sending a mail to his email ID. So now we are going to send an email to his email ID. Since he's a valid user, he should be getting an alert. So for this, first we will enable the exceptions. We'll say $mail is equal to new PHP mailer, and then we'll say true. So we are giving true here just to enable exceptions if there are any issues in sending the mail. And we'll use an SMTP server. So we'll say $mail is SMTP. And we're going to use authentication to log into our SMTP server. So $mail we'll call again. And we'll use the method SMTP auth. We'll set that to true, because we are going to use the Gmail SMTP server and we are going to have authentication for that. Now we should give the credentials for the SMTP server which we are going to use. So what is that we are going to use here is we are going to use Gmail's SMTP server. So we need to specify what is the host address of the server and what is the encryption type, what is the port, and the username and app password. So let's give the details here. So the host is $mail host, and the host is smtp.gmail.com. We are using the SMTP server of Gmail, so it's smtp.gmail.com. And the encryption type we have to give $mail, that is SMTP secure, that is equal to its PHPMailer, and encryption underscore start TLS. So here the encryption is TLS, and for that we have to give the port $mail port. The port is 587. See, these details are available if you search for smtp.gmail.com. Gmail's SMTP server's credentials, you'll be getting this. So please use this. And next is the username and app password. The user name, that is the email ID and app password which we have created. Say I've created Satish never gives up at gmail.com. That will be the username, and the app password which we have generated after creating this account. So we have turned on two-factor authentication, then we set up the app password, right? That is what is required here. So these are the credentials which our PHP script will use for logging into the Gmail server. So let me give $mail and username is equal to Satish never gives up. You can give your email ID here. I am giving my email ID. So this will be the email ID, the from email ID from where an email is getting generated. So Satish never gives up at gmail.com. And you have to mention your password here. That is $mail. This password is the app password, not the account login password. Please understand that. And password is equal to, so I'll be entering the password here. So I'll definitely have an edit here so that you will not be able to see my password. And you have to enter your password here. I'm not typing the password due to security reasons. I'm just going to leave it like that. But when I run the code, I'm going to have the password. So just for security, I'm just going to leave it like that. But you need to enter your passwords here. Next is we should be setting the from address. So $mail, that is set from. So we'll pass the email ID here. That is Satish never gives up at gmail.com. And say from name. Say I'm just giving, say sometimes you get all these mails from systems. So we don't have a user sending the mail. I just give my website name, Code Spindle. It's like Code Spindle sending this email. And then the next thing we have to set is we should add address. The to address. So that is $mail, add address. So this is the to address. The to address is from the database. So we're going to get $row. This is the user who is going to receive our alert. So his email ID that's coming from the database. And we'll also have the username to this user with this email ID. So the username is again from the database, that is $row, and the username. So I hope you were able to follow this. These are the SMTP server credentials, and this is the login data for our PHP script. So it's going to use this email ID and this app password for logging into Gmail. And after it logs in, this is the from address. From this ID with this username, a mail will be sent to the email ID in the database, right? So this is the recipient's email ID that will be mapped here. And what will be the username? The recipient's username from the table will be mapped as username. So from and to address is set. The next thing is we should set some subject. So $mail, and we'll have subject set. Subject is, we can say, email alert, something like that, email security alert. We can have a subject, and we'll also have a body for this message. So before going with the body for the message, I want to get the timestamp and then print that inside the body. So for that, what is that we are going to do is we are going to set our time zone. So date underscore default time zone will set. It's not get, it's underscore set. And then we'll set that as Asia. You can set your time zone. Here I'm setting this time zone, Asia, Calcutta. And then now we'll go to the body. So we'll have $mail. So this is the body of the message. So the message is, you have logged in to your application and then we can call this specific method. We'll concatenate the date, and then we'll pass month, that is the year, month, day, hour. So this is the timestamp that we are generating for the user to know when exactly this login happened, seconds. That's it. So you have logged into your application, and this is the date with the year, month, and day, and the timestamp. After the body, we'll send this mail, $mail send. So mail is sent to the user, alerting him that the application has been logged on using his user ID and password. Next, what we'll do is we'll also throw a welcome page for the user. So it's header and location is, that is, homepage.php. So this is where the welcome message will be given to the user after he's verified and he's a valid user. So we're going to throw him this page. So our valid user condition check is done. The next thing is, let's remove all these white spaces. Else, see, if there is no matching record for that user, see, else, see, the user ID is not matching with the user ID entered by the user, the password is not matching. Maybe the credentials he has entered in the form is wrong. Then we can give a message saying echo invalid user credentials. Say the password is wrong, something like that. So invalid user credentials. Check your credentials. So if the user has entered a wrong password and his user ID is fine, then we're going to say invalid user credentials, check your credentials. And if the user ID itself is wrong, say if the number of rows returned is not greater than 0, the user ID itself is wrong, then there is no such record for the user. So we'll go to this else part. If number of rows returned is not greater than 0, we can echo no such user found in the database. And after all our work is done, what we can do is we can close the database connection by calling close connection and passing the connection object. So let me repeat what we have done here. Just a quick repetition. So we have created this form asking the user to enter his user ID and password. Upon submit, we are having this PHP code here. We are including the PHP database functions which help us with opening a connection and closing a connection in db.php. We are including that file. Then we are just including some of the libraries that are required from PHPMailer, like vendor autoload.php, and we'll use PHPMailer libraries here. Next, we'll check whether we have submitted. Next, we are checking whether the submit has been set, and we'll get the user ID and password from the form, open a database connection. From the table, retrieve the username, password, email, and user ID for that specific user using the data entered in the form. Bind the parameters, execute the query. If the number of rows returned is greater than 0, fetch every row. So you'll have one row for an user ID, right? Because user ID is the primary key in the table. And you're going to check whether the user ID in the form matches the user ID in the database and the password matches the password in the database. If is a valid user, we'll start sending a mail. So we are going to set some parameters like SMTP authentication to be true and is SMTP, and we are going to set PHPMailer to be true just to enable exceptions here, and we are going to give the credentials for logging into our Gmail server, which is our smtp.gmail.com is the address, and encryption is TLS, port is 587, username and password, say you should give your password here. Password is the app password and user ID is the account you have created on Gmail. And from address and to address, from address is this is the email address, this is the username for the from address, and to address we are getting it from the database and the username from the database. Subject is email security alert, we are setting the time zone. And why we are doing that? Because in the body we are concatenating the timestamp and the date along with this message. And finally we are sending the mail. After sending, the user will be directed to an home page, a welcome page. And if there is a bad password being entered, then we say invalid user credentials. If there is no such user in the database, if the user ID itself is wrong, we say no such user found in the database. Finally we close the connection. See, there's one more thing that we need to code, that is this home page, which is a very simple page. I've already coded that. Let me show you the code for that. So I've already coded this home page. It's a very simple HTML page. Title is home page. 2 tags are there. Welcome to codespindle.com. Check if you have received an email now. So this page is just a welcome page for the user upon logging in. So we have finished our code. Let's check the output now. Okay, here I have an error. So the error, so I have received an error message here. So I had a few errors actually, like I didn't put my app password, which I've added. And then there was another issue. There was a spelling issue here, like SMTP. I've typed SMPT. So this was another issue. So I fixed these 2 issues, and I went in for again executing my code. After fixing those issues, enter the username and password, submit. So my code finally worked, and I was able to get that email security alert as a recipient. So this is the recipient inbox, and you're logged into your application with the timestamp. So that's about it. So what we have seen is how to create a PHP mailing script that will alert when the user logs in using an login form. And the entire code for this is available at codespindle.com. Please visit codespindle.com to get the complete code. But if you want to run this code, keep in mind you should have Composer, you should have installed PHPMailer, you should have created your Gmail account, and you should have enabled 2-factor authentication, and you should have set up the app password. And you should also ensure that you don't have any spelling mistakes on your code, or else you're going to get errors like what we have seen. Thank you all for listening. Take care.